the back.
Yeah, well, I want to take exception with a lot of what you said. I'm a
Go ahead.
revolutionary communist. Yeah, communism is alive and well. You talked about, you know, Islam as being...
Alive, maybe.
You talked about Islam as being dysfunctional. I want to talk about America as being dysfunctional. The loss of habeas corpus, you know, jailing with no trial, spying, torture, endless war, you know, the torturing of Jose Padilla. And I know you're a supporter of Bush. And Bush himself says he was put into office by God. You said you don't believe religion can be used for violent or destructive behavior. But frankly, the people that are behind and with this IFAW, like Rick Santorum, you know, are biblical literalists who believe in the stoning of gay people, who believe in Leviticus.
Okay.
Those are the people that...
Question, lady.
Okay, wait, let her finish. You're close to being finished, right?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So, I guess one of the points I want to make is support all that. Support Christian fascism, which is on the move in this country, and you can look at the movie Jesus Camp. Support The point I want to make, Mr. Medved, is in Germany was one of the most non-Semitic countries in the world when Hitler came to power. And people like you, and Islamic fundamentalist, you know, hate people, turned that country, and the Jewish people in that country, put them into concentration camps, turned a very non-Semitic country into that kind of country. That's what you're doing with these Islamic fascist weeks. That's what you're doing in this country. And these words that you're speaking are spurring a movement of foot soldiers who are going to attack Muslim people. Are you going to take responsibility for that?
Absolutely. First of all, what's your first name, if I may ask?
Terry.
Sherry?
Terry.
Terry. I hope you will call my show, okay? And we can engage in some of this on the air. To take your last point first, my grandfather was an officer in the German army in the First World War. His family had lived in Germany since the 1300s. They can trace it back. My grandfather was a prominent person, and because our family was Jewish, my grandfather had the foresight to leave Germany, the country that he had served. He actually had some of his fingers shot off in the First World War, the Erste Weltkrieg. And he was fortunate enough to come to the United States with my mother in 1934. So it's kind of tough to blame me or my family, who were Jews who were driven out of Germany, for the Nazi takeover, which my grandfather attempted to resist, and when he couldn't, he actually left Germany because, and it's an interesting story, again, I tell the story in my book, he had a small factory that he owned, and the union in the factory became the Nazi union, and insisted that on April 20th, which was Hitler's birthday, that they fly the Nazi flag. And when the government insisted that, yes, they fly the Nazi flag in his factory, he realized there was no future for him in what had been his homeland and the homeland of his ancestors. In terms of your talk as a revolutionary communist about rights of habeas corpus, you know, I hope you'll raise that with El Comandante Castro, who he's no communist? Well, he thinks he is. Okay. Okay, he can call himself anything. And I understand that communism is this wonderful idea. It's just every time it's been tried by various people, they're not real communists, which is why there are 100 million withering bones and dead bodies all across Asia and Europe. Mao now killed 70 million people. We don't think so.
That's bullshit. You know what? They opened up the Soviet archives. Take a look at it. They opened up the Soviet archives, even in terms of what really went down under Stalin.
Okay. You know, again, we're going to, your colleague, Your colleague in the revolutionary...
It's always the good guys to you. It doesn't matter how many days you know.
What's that?
I said, how come the U.S. is always the good guys? It's like you talk about this thing about...
Wait.
The bodies on the ground. The bodies on the
Yeah.
ground you're showing us. What do you think the bodies look like in Hiroshima and Nagasaki? What did they look like when people's skin peeled off?
They look...
What did the people in Iraq look like? And you talk about this thing of like they've all been killed. First of all, the whole thing in Iraq has been let loose by the U.S. invasion, let's face it. Number two, what has pushed forward is Islamic fundamentalism. Yes, it has. If you support, I think Islamic fundamentalism is a horrible and reactionary thing. But we can't choose between that and between the U.S. waging war on every other single country in the world, whoever they decide they're going to go after.
Okay.
That's what's happening.
Okay.
What
Give me a chance to respond now, okay?
Give me 20 more seconds.
Sure.
What do you think the bodies look like when Blackwater and Baghdad shot innocent people? What did people look like in Fallujah when they surrounded the entire city and they blew up ambulances? That's what the U.S. military did, but that's all right because we're the good guys.
Okay,
right?
nobody says it's all right, and the people from Blackwater are facing all kinds of consequences, and not just business consequences. Okay. I'm sorry. There are Marines who have been in. There are Marines. Okay, I'm sorry. There are Marines who have been in the brig who have been facing serious charges regarding this Haditha thing, which, by the way, increasingly looks like a scam. The point about all of this is that anyone who wants to look at the history of the world and look at the record of socialist/communist countries, particularly in Eastern Europe. I've traveled in Eastern Europe. I know there's some people here who grew up in Eastern Europe. And if you want to talk about the Soviet archives that have been released, Communism's Black Book, which was written by two French former communists, estimates that a minimum of 100 million people were killed. Not in wars, but killed by forced labor and deliberate starvation and gulags and concentration camps.
That has been disproven.
Okay, no, your question is...
The U.S. death.
No, the U.S. deaths, again, first of all, they're different. I happen to believe that the deaths at Hiroshima and Nagasaki were necessary and saved both Americans and Japanese. Okay.
That's the truth.
It is. I'm sorry. It is. Okay. You know. Okay. If we can talk about this a little bit later if you want. But the truth of the matter is that people who have really looked at this seriously, including most Japanese historians, if there had been an invasion, a conventional invasion of the home islands, not only would we have had a minimum of 200,000 dead Americans, there would have been literally millions of Japanese who would have fought to the death, and there would have been more death than there was in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Let me take a couple of the points that Terry made, pardon me. She talked about Christian fascism's own march. You know, I don't know where. I mean, first of all, Rick Santorum is a Catholic. Rick Santorum has never, ever in his life, nor has any conservative leader that I've ever heard, called for the stoning or execution of gay people. No one has called for the execution. And by the way, if you can find a single politician, a single Christian leader who has called for the execution of gay people, I will buy your dinner. Okay? This thing does not exist. It doesn't happen. She talks about the film Jesus Camp. I saw the film Jesus Camp. It was the most pathetic piece of propaganda. It did not deserve... And again, I wrote about it rather considerably. And what's interesting about that, it was about a camp in Devil's Lake, North Dakota, called Kids on Fire Camp. And the camp, I'll admit, the camp was... It seemed very sincere, a little bit strange. Because of the film, the camp has been closed. You'll be delighted to know that this camp that used to draw 200 Christian kids from around the country no longer menaces the Republic. Anybody who honestly believes that Christian fascism is on the march